Previously on ELEGOO Centauri Carbon. And now the continuation.
Hello, what's happening? This. And this. The replacement build plates have arrived. So, let's try out what I got. First of all, I received the official replacement plate from ELEGOO. As an alternate, I have also bought an aftermarket no-name plate of AliExpress, in glorious gold. Did I said alternate? I meant primary. Dimensionally, both plates are the same, so the aftermarket one fits on the Centauri's bed like a glove, even though small details are slightly off, like the rounding of the corners. Also, my aftermarket plate came with a small ear on the top, slightly bent, but I fixed it with a pair of pliers and a piece of rubber to protect the surface. At this juncture, I need to say my experience with ELEGOO's support was excellent. Not only to remedy my issue with the warp plate, but also before the sale, when I needed them for all kinds of confirmations and paperwork, which they fulfilled. They were quick and effective every time, and there was no "let me check and get back to you." However, it bears reminding that across the globe, unless you're living on mainland China, there is no actual hands-on support if you need it. That's not ELEGOO specific. Most of the Chinese manufacturers have no, minimal, or horrendous distribution networks. After my issues in the last video, I checked user reviews, and while I didn't find anyone else with my specific problem, I did find people with other sorts of problems, stemming from either transport damage or insufficient QA testing. And while people were quick to acknowledge ELEGOO's willingness to provide spare parts in a timely fashion, the users themselves were the one doing the repairs. That's it, I just wanted to touch on this point before proceeding further. I also have to mention that in between the last video and this one, a new firmware version dropped. It's important because, among other things, it fixed the problem with not being able to do remote changes to the printer once the printing started, like turning the light on and off. I do remember my ABCs, so I'll clean this first. With that out of the way, let's bed level this new plate. With a heavy heart full of apprehension, I started the first layer test. But thanks the 3D Maker, all looks good so far and the result is promising. It turns out the Z offset is too high, but it's consistent. I can work with that. I started printing a bead across the bed while constantly adjusting the Z offset and hunting for the magic number. But no matter how much I tried, every time it looked like I got figured out was a short-lived victory. Just a few lines after or even higher up on the bed, the print didn't look as good. Why? I narrowed it down to two possible issues. First, ELEGOO bestows this printer with two different types of leveling. You have the bed leveling that happens when you first initialize the printer, or if you call the process manually from its main menu. That's an 11 by 11, 121 points mesh that is boasted in the marketing materials. Brilliant. But that takes quite a long time, so, as an unexpected time saver, you also have a diminished 6x6 version, so only 36 points bed leveling process that happens if you check the respective options before any print.
Why the hell is this different?
And what does the machine do with the superior 121 points mesh when you use this option? It will be risky to interpolate the new data with potentially obsolete data, so I can only assume the machine just gets rid of its previous bed mesh information and Z offset and relies on the lesser 36 point mesh bed level that is done on the spot. Even though a 6x6 bed level is nothing to sneeze at, you can't ignore the fact that that's worse, especially because the printer basically shoves this option down your throat every goddamn time you print something. Also, this is not documented in the manual, on the site or anywhere else on the web, even if you look for this information specifically. Second potential problem, and in my estimation with more of an involvement in my lack of progress, is the fact that the printer wipes its nozzle at just 140 Celsius. For example, if you check the bed leveling options before the print, this wipe will indeed be done after a ramp up to 250 Celsius and then drop to 140, I'll give it that. But it still means you rely on the filament to basically pour out of the nozzle before that 140 wipe. And sometimes, just sometimes, you get unlucky. And I think I caught the printer doing a full 11x11 bed leveling with a piece of filament stuck in its nose. That's a damn shame. So, a bunch of bed levelings later, I printed another small test and I got this. Perfect and consistent first level. And at default or auto or how they may call it, Z offset. And I haven't had problems ever since. How? Discipline. First, I just stopped checking that option to quickly bed level before sending something to print. Ever. No 6x6 points meshes for me, thank you. Second, I manually level the bed with the full fat process and make sure the nozzle looks clean while it does it. After that, I immediately print a small one-layer square while fondling with the Z offset, if necessary. Once all this is done, I consider this set in stone, and don't touch it again. Don't take the bed out, just chain print everything until I need to change the printing plate. Then it's rinse and repeat. Finally, good printing ahead. Let's do some. I'm pretty confident this is capable of printing chap cubes and such. I did all this in the previous video anyway, so I moved on to the VFAs directly. But wait, why does this look messed up and unfinished? Hello there! Oh, it's just your friendly filament knot.
Prints must go on.
There's little to be learned from this VFA test in white PLA. It obscures everything. Even the camera refuses to focus properly. Let's change plates for the golden one, clean and level the bed. Also, I'm gonna bust out the black Rapid PLA Plus filament, as I want to print some fixture for the printer. First I need to print ELEGOO's poop catcher, because the current situation is untenable. Printing and installing it is a breeze. Just loosen the screws that are already in place and slot the recipient in. There. No more mess under the desk. Speaking of desks, this cheap IKEA one I don't think is long for this world. Note to me, get a new desk for this printer. Second item I'm interested in is the rails for attaching the glass lid to the side of the printer, if needed. The rails print vertically, and they also mount using the screws that are already there, holding the side panel in place. I love efficiency. Getting back to the VFAs, I printed the test in both ELEGOO's Rapid PLA Plus and generic PLA. The Rapid PLA shows a lot of VFAs at lower speeds, as expected. For the generic PLA, I went up to 250 mm per second, and it looks better even at medium speeds, because the second it stretches it at any rate of speed, the material gets matte. So maybe the lesson to be had here is just print with regular PLA? Joking aside, apart from the fact that VFAs weren't really something that struck me in a big way the whole time I used this printer, let me print something real quick and make my case on the matter. Now this is a proper slab of plastic. Just a tablet holder I modeled from a bamboo IKEA thing. Besides the curves, that are in itself a good test of quality printing, it has several long straight faces positioned at different angles across the bed, so some will be just on the x-axis, but others on both x and y. One trick that I used for this print, and this alone, is I bothered to change the default printing order of walls, by first printing the slow outside wall and then the inside one. This helped me in the past seemingly get the best printing quality possible, and I think now was no exception. You need a 4K camera, a thick pair of glasses, holding your tongue at a funny angle, and a strong light source at the opposite angle to even figure this out as being 3D printed at anything further than an arm's length. So, specifics aside, let's roll the printing montage and talk about how I feel about this printer after my little adventure. Hours upon hours of fiddling and printing all kinds of trinkets made me completely fell in love with it. This is the best thing that happened since sliced bread after all. First thing, the speed. The rate at which this thing goes through filament spools is simply outstanding. For a long time I held the belief that I don't care that much about speed because I am not babysitting the printer anyway. I would have gladly gave up more speed for more printing volume. But now, once I got a little taste of speed, I don't think I can go back. Ever. Especially considering the fact that whatever I try to print has always ended up looking great at full speed. Which brings me to my next point. Second thing, the quality. And this has a twofold meaning here. On one hand, every print I did after figuring out the plate issues has come out great. Even that one print that had an issue with a support that tried to run away finalized nicely with the printer just powering through to the finish. Not even once did I had the feeling I need to intervene and lower the speed or anything like that. All this time, I just sent things remotely upstairs for print and just went there to collect the results once done, fully expecting they're gonna turn out as intended. And that's exactly what happened. But there's also a second aspect in terms of quality here, and I can only judge the hardware version that I have, that seem to be somewhat different than what's present in almost 100% of other reviews. Probably because that was what was available at some point for retail in North America, and or what ELEGOO sent away for review. This late iteration that I got can be immediately identified by the presence of two proper LED strips on the upper rim of the enclosure, instead of the measly spotlight above the camera as on the early releases. So since the original light issue was fixed, there is little remaining you can fault it. Sure, the panels are naked on the inside, so they do very little to keep in noise or heat, but most of the noise is fan noise anyway. There is nothing that I can put my finger to, from the molding of the plastic bits to the glass or the quality of the screen, and point out as being cheap. Nothing betrays the price point, which brings me neatly to third and final thing, the price. This doesn't require any explanation. The reviews are in, Centauri Carbon delivers Bamboo Lab levels of quality and speed at less than half the price and without obvious corner cutting. I don't know at what profit or loss ELEGOO is shipping those, but it can't be much to be gained outside of market share, or ELEGOO is counting on shifting an enormous volume of these. So this is it. Speed, quality and price. The holy trinity of disruption, and I'm utterly glad there is still room for someone to be disrupting the disruptors before they became Apple. But even as I feel happy about finding this printer, I cannot shake the bittersweet taste I feel about this moment. And I cannot explain why without showing this. This is a regular classic office laser printer. It doesn't matter what brand or model, it's color and it's mine. I had it for at least a decade, and it never failed to deliver, day in and day out. It's an unassuming beige cube that hides a monstrously complex machinery calibrated to output something we otherwise perceive as very basic. A day will come when this machine will fail to deliver, and outside of parsing a simple troubleshooting checklist, I'm not even gonna attempt to open it and fix it, even as I understand the gist of it. The process is simply too complex and highly tuned to even attempt it. On top of that, it doesn't make economic sense because a new one is not even that expensive. But it wasn't always like that. I'm almost old enough to remember at least the tail end of when printing on paper was an adventure, at the very least of figuring the correct settings and right drivers for that particular hardware. Once printers came out of the labs of the world and arrived in the homes of computer enthusiasts, there was a real incentive for the manufacturers to make them foolproof, and that's exactly what they did. I feel like this is happening as we speak with 3D printing. Not long ago, printers like Ender were champions that brought 3D printing out of the shoddy era and into the homes of hobbyists everywhere. Now printers like this one are champions not only for enthusiasts and hobbyists, but for anyone with even a vague interest in 3D printing. It's cheap enough, reliable enough, and easy enough to be on its way to become just another beige cube. The DLSS of 3D printing has arrived. 3D printing has become so good, it may as well be considered magic. And not long into the future, we will take this magic for granted and consider it mundane. All this being said, I'm absolutely thrilled with this purchase, and it delivers exactly what I wanted. I'm sure there will be people that demand what I am absolutely trying to avoid. There is no cloud service, no app on the phone, and no AMS. The unit isn't even running Clipper, officially. I don't care for none of those, necessarily, and I hope a lot of people will buy this printer and others like it, and pave the way for the future of 3D printing for the masses. What an absolute unit!